cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left.
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up, friends? Daniel Dopp here from the Fantasy Focused Football Podcast over on ESPN.
It's Fabs here, Michael Fabiano from Sports Illustrated.
Hey fans, this is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I got to give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
You know who you can trust if you've got some questions about your fantasy squad?
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league? If you want to check out a cool show on YouTube that'll help you get ready for the fantasy football season,
check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network. You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
Best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
Get you right. Enjoy the show.
And I'm getting down cause I run my sleeves up. And I'm getting right cause I run my sleeves up. And I'm getting down cause I run my sleeves up. And I'm getting right cause I
What up? What up? What up? How we doing? You'll notice it's just gonna be it's just me, old Kenny G, your boy at the FF Tavern, and tonight we got a banger for you. We are gonna be doing the first, at least for us, of the year. I don't know if anyone else has done it, but we're gonna get a Scott Fish Bowl 15 mock draft going on tonight. Glad everyone could be here. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of setup going on here. All right, very good. So, for those that don't know, the rule set for Scott Fish Bowl. For those that don't know Scott Fish, real quick intro. I think everyone watching here probably knows about Scott Fish and the Scott Fish Bowl. Really fantastic charity fantasy football tournament for Fantasy Cares. But what's important to you guys is it's got a crazy rule set. Scoring just dropped. Let me give you just a real quick overview of the scoring if you're not super familiar. If not, quick Google search, just Scott Fish Bowl 15 scoring. Boom, it's going to come up with a bunch of places that have the scoring posted. Super easy to find on the Google there. But you know what? Actually, I could probably just pull this up on stream if I want to. Let's go ahead and do that. So it is 2.5 PPR for wide receivers. The general is 2.5 PPR, 3.5 PPR for tight end. All right. It is a full point for a first down for any player and half a point per carry. So the theme here is volume is king, right? All touchdowns are 6 points. That includes passing touchdowns, so a slight bump to the quarterbacks. But in general, it's a net negative for the quarterbacks because if you are a PPR receiver, you're getting 2.5. You know, if you're a pass catching tight end getting a lot of targets, that's 3.5. And running backs, I think Bijan would have scored the highest last year. I'd have to double check. But with full point for a first down, half a point for a carry, 20 carries is getting you 10 points. All those first downs that the short yardage can get can really rack up. A lot of different ways to go, though. The big thing is the rosters. Okay, if you're in the draft, you'll probably notice if you go onto your team roster, this is kind of what we're dubbing ultra flex. So the idea is it is kind of positionless. Okay, if you hate tight ends, you don't got to draft a single one. There are 2 super flex spots, so you can start 2 quarterbacks. But you don't have to start a single quarterback if you don't want to. You can literally punt the quarterback position. And I'll tell you, it's kind of interesting because I think only one or 2 quarterbacks in 2024 under this scoring would have been essentially a first-round pick. So interesting. Should be pretty interesting. But if you want to grab 7 straight running backs, if you want to grow 7 straight wide receivers, you can do whatever you want to. But it's 11 starters, 11 bench, 9 position, and you can pop in 2 quarterbacks. So that's kind of the gist. Super PPR, point for first down, half point for carry is kind of the idea. So without further ado, let's hop into the draft. We're going to get a couple quick randoms, and then we've got a couple of folks who are actually drafting live or in some sort of a Scott Fish Bowl pod. So I'm going to give them their draft slot. Let's go 1, 2, 3. All right. So from here, got to pop myself into the 6th spot, and somebody had another spot. So who was that? Let's check the chat. And when you guys want to pop in the live stream and let me know who Who needed that that draft spot? We'll go ahead and get you in there. Did not have that saved ahead of time. Is it Nick? Yeah, Nick. Nick's in spot 8. Let's go ahead and hook Nick up with spot 8 here. If anyone has an issue with their slot too, not a big deal. We can move this around. So please do tell me. I want this to be good practice for everybody. Nick, where you at? Here we go. You're in 3. Let's get you down to 8. Let's get me down to 6. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, looking good. Looking good. All right, then. Well, without further ado, I think we can go ahead and get this thing running. I know we were going to do a little bit of warm-up, but I think everyone's ready to draft, so let's do this thing. All right, and off we go. Very, very good. Just to give you guys a heads up, too. So I'm going to run this a little bit different. Super short pick clock, so 30 seconds. I am going to pause on my pick just for a little bit, just to kind of explain my thought process. I'm not going to slow up the draft too much, but I just want to kind of talk through how I'm attacking this format, my thoughts pick for pick, how I think others are doing, just so you get an idea of where I'm at with the format. Maybe we can kind of learn together a little bit. Do appreciate the folks in chat. Yeah, if anyone auto picks over here and a couple too many times in a row, I certainly appreciate it. And Ethan, if you are not in our Discord, definitely hop in there, message, just throw something out there. We'll make sure we get a link. I'll even throw a link in chat here in a little bit. Normally, I have a co-host here to help with production, so I might be a little bit slow on some of the production and getting some links and stuff in there. All right, let's go ahead and we're just going to pause draft real quick because I am on the clock. Not going to take too long. The real conversation here for me is, it's Bowers versus Jefferson versus do I get a little bit crazy? And I think I'm actually going to, in this format, from what I have seen, I am going to be pretty running back heavy. I want my volume kings, and I'm going to get a little bit silly here right off the bat. I do like the Bowers build. I think I'm just going to take Genty off the rip here, though. Right now, my way for attacking this is absolutely going to be pretty heavy volume king running backs. And then I've got some more nuanced strategies a little bit later on. We'll see how the board kind of falls to me. I really think it's like the top 2 tight ends. As soon as McBride's gone, I kind of just want to fully punt the tight end position. To be honest, that's kind of where I'm sitting with it. I just think there's too many other good spots through the entire section of the draft to where you can go real late value. I won't give up my favorite late tight ends, but there's at least 2 or 3 that I like considerably more, and I don't mind super punting all the way down for them. I don't have a set strategy at quarterback yet, but keep in mind the half point per carry does work for quarterbacks as well. So that is it's kind of like a double boon. Rushing quarterbacks already get a little bit of a bump, right? But in this particular case, your Lamars, your Allens, they average well over 100 carries per year, and that's gonna credit them twice with the per carry. And keep in mind, when quarterbacks rush, they almost always get a first down, right? Tush push that gets first down, that's an extra whole point, right? Any of these quarterbacks rushing, that's probably gonna be half a point for the carry, a full point for the first down plus their yardage. So that's looking like a 2+ point play almost every time. So I think the rushing quarterbacks are going to skyrocket up the board a little bit. As you kind of see, yeah, a lot of them went right there. They're already the top on the board. Let's see, we're about to be on the clock here in just a moment. I would have loved if McBride had fallen to me. Right now, I think McBride's in a really good spot. Bowers has sort of that, Dynasty tight end 1 prestige, but I think McBride's about 95% of him. It wouldn't be massively shocking to have McBride finish just ahead of Bowers, if I'm being honest. So I like the round discount on McBride quite a bit. Let's see if I can just make this pick without going too deep into the tank, and I think I'm going to. I absolutely love Malik Neighbors. I really do. I think he's going to be a volume king. This is going to be one of the very few spots where I am going to go ahead and not take a running back, but it's specifically because I think Neighbors could lead the league in catches this year. There's only going to be a couple of wide receivers that I really target in on if there is a comparable running back that I like in the range. I was very much considering Devon Achane here. And I would have reached down the board enough to Jonathan Taylor. Remember, volume is king, and Jonathan Taylor he's a volume is king guy in an offense that it might not be super good, but it wasn't super good last year. And the way he finished the season, playing extremely good with teams knowing what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And I think he's being undervalued because he's not as sexy in the dynasty world anymore. Strong running back class, deep running back class. I think the team narrative is just nasty. So I do think Jonathan Taylor is a value in redraft, but particularly will be a value in this one as well. And I might have to start giving not giving away every take there, because Tumultuous definitely going with him, but I think he probably would have grabbed him there anyways. Looking at the board here, so Justin Fields goes extremely early, but they're clearly looking at him as, what if he just rushes his mind away? And honestly, I don't think it's a crazy pick. I think it's earlier than I would go, but it's not as crazy as I think some people might think. Again, he's basically a running back that throws the ball a little bit. And if you look at the first round, you're seeing where the value is, and it really is not so much of the running back, but the volume king, right? You can be a volume king at wide receiver too. There's some wide receivers going later on that I will be targeting. I probably can't target one of them because same team here at this point, but we'll see how early Wandale goes. I think there was already a joke in the comments earlier about Wandale 101, and I could totally see. Oh no, is that just ADP? No, that had to be queued up. Sculling, come back to us. So Devon Achane finally goes. Pretty good value. Interesting that Aiden took Jacobs over Achane, but the points per carry definitely adding up. Keep in mind, Achane, the hyper PPR could come in handy. We'll see how that goes, but Ollie Gordon could come in and take some of the short yardage first downage and the goal lines away. So you can definitely see how that makes some sense. I'm going to go ahead and pause here just so I can talk through my pick a little bit with you guys. It won't take too much long. So I've got a couple wide receivers here. Remember, volume is king, right? So one of the things I have to consider here is, like, Ladd McConkey is probably a little bit over Drake London for me, just in volume, pretty close. Wouldn't consider AJ Brown, Marv. JSN is in consideration. I actually am looking at Garrett Wilson, and I don't think the running backs are good enough here. So for me, this is, again, volume is king play. Do I think Drake London is going to have more volume than Garrett Wilson? Kind of interesting. I think I'm going to go with the chalk just in case Wilson comes back to me. You know what? I might not. Yeah, we're going to go with Wilson here. I would not hate it if someone went... I'm going to go London. I wouldn't hate it if someone went Wilson. Looks like Ethan, what you got here? Did some number crushing on Hunter. Now, I will say that 27.5 per game sounds good. It's not as good as you think, though. I think that is, if you look at the Scott Fishbowl projections in the comped leagues right now, I think like TJ Hawkinson's week 1 projections is like 27 fantasy points. So it is good. I am definitely on the fading Hunter in this format thing. I think he'll be fun to own. I just think he's going to get overdrafted, but I think we've got some pretty savvy drafters here that haven't taken him. I projected him. Initially, I had him in the 3rd, and then I kept thinking about it, and there was just too many other better spots. It was mostly that I think he's going to be a low-volume wide receiver. Even BTJ was a low-volume wide receiver, and this is not a yards after the catch format. So I just don't think he brings enough on the offensive table to make up for it on defense with the hyper-offensive scoring. So he's going to have to fall to the round 4 for me, possibly later. We will have to see. So interesting. I was hoping the draft would hit this certain point when, for instance, London going right next to Chase Brown. We're going to hit this point where running backs are going to go heavier, and you're going to have these situations where they're screaming value at wide receiver, but you think it's screaming value. Is it true? You really have to look at the archetype of what you're drafting. For instance, Joe Mixon right there, right? You look at him compared to those wide receivers and you'd think it's a crazy play, but he is a volume back. So let's see. I'm going to be up here in just a couple of picks. My queue is pretty well set up here. The next couple, there's an interesting choice here because there are some running backs that I do like quite a bit. Nick, okay, you took Garrett Wilson on me. I was definitely looking forward to Wilson coming back. We'll see if I get sniped here. There's a couple guys I might take over the running backs here potentially, but we will have to see. Let me make my pick and then I'll get back to the chat a little bit. So Ethan, you're drafting at the Seattle Live event. Awesome, man. Awesome. I hope we can get some good practice in here. I'm going to take a look at the quarterbacks on the board left here. There are some rushing quarterbacks available with Bo Nix and then Caleb here. Do I like them over this range? And I actually think I do. This is really close. I like JSN. I like Rashee Rice, and the running backs are close. I'm going to punt tight end at this point. So let's go ahead and take Bo Nix. It would have been pretty close between, Bo, Caleb, and Drake May there. I have them all in a pretty similar tier, and I like them similarly for all the similar reasons. Honestly took Nix there because I had 5 seconds. Didn't want to auto pick. And normally I might homer pick Caleb there, but I actually think Caleb probably won't use his legs as much as Nix and May. And in this format, I think I need that. But I think any of them are relatively fine picks. So interesting. We kind of hit this point where you look at the board and you look down a little bit and you see the running backs start to get a little bit gross here. Right? You're like, Kamara could be a volume king. Also could be kind of a muddy situation. Kenneth Walker, I kind of like, but you kind of see some more value at wide receiver. It's interesting. I still think I would be, if it came back to me, I think Judkins is really buried in ADP. He was actually someone I was seriously considering over the Knicks pick. I just did not want to get boxed out at a range of quarterbacks that I still would take. And I've got to run the math at that'd be an interesting thing for you guys. If I'm running some math, I would want to see the Knicks, Caleb, Drake May sort of projected comps against the running backs in this range. If I've learned one thing from this mock already, it's definitely going to be that is a decision point in the 4-5 that I'm going to want to study up a little bit and figure out what my plan of attack is there. I'm probably going to have some of my own tiers and tier breaks for this specific round to kind of figure out what I want to do. And we'll go from there. Do we want to double tap another quarterback here? I can in Caleb or May. It just feels a little bit early to go with one of them when I still have some pretty amazing talent on the board here. I'm going to reach down for someone that is has gone criminally too low. Easily Devontae Adams. I think Devontae Adams. I know this is going to feel a little bit silly, but I think Devontae Adams could absolutely be top 5 in targets or catches this year. He might lose a little bit of a step, but veteran quarterbacks tend to throw to veteran wide receivers. I think that's going to be a pretty good match. The fact that he was able to step on the field, and I know we had the connection with Rodgers and whatnot, but I think I still saw it on the field from him. I think he's a value. If I didn't take Adams, I would have been looking at Kamara there, Lord of Fanta. So we'll see if I get punished. May and Caleb are probably going to go. Yeah, they're probably going to go off the board. So is what it is. But we'll see if we regret it. I think I'm pretty happy with the Devontae pick. It's funny. I said I was going to go all running backs, and now I have Neighbors, London, and Adams. So kind of is what it is. Looks like that was not the plan. Not sure if I would change anything though. I don't think I would take the running backs over London. It's an interesting question. We might have to look at that a little bit later on. Get back over to chat and see what you guys are doing. Yeah, Victorious. Wan'Dale Robinson 101. This is the absolute format for him. I'm so curious to see where he ends up going for sure. Let's see, do you think Trey Henderson will get a bunch of volume? I think he will at some point. I don't think he will early on in the season. I just don't see the need for it. I don't think they're going to put him on the field as the starter right away. I just think it's going to take. I think it'll come on pretty quick. I think by week 4 or 5 he will fully take over. I think you're going to see some pizzazz in the passing game a little bit, and it's going to get him on the field a little bit more. I do think he's going to see volume, but later. And I don't think the Patriots are going to be like an amazing offense. I think they'll probably be balanced. They just seem like a team that wants to get a few people involved. I think Trey Anderson really comes alive next year. I don't love him in this format. I don't see him as a 20 carry plus the catches guy, right? So I'm kind of fading him a little bit in this format, just a tiny bit. but we'll have to see. Remember, Trey Henderson is also, kind of your home run hitter too, which is sort of the opposite of what you want in this format. I think he's fantastic, but like between him and Judkins, for instance, I think Judkins is significantly better. Walker, who went later, I think Walker is a better volume running back who's guaranteed to have it, where there's a little too much volatility in the range of outcomes with Trey. What else? Aiden wanted Baker badly at the turn. 120 rushing attempts in the past 2 seasons. Baker does use his legs a little bit, honestly. You got a point there. I think got to give a huge credit to Andy Holloway of the Fantasy Footballers, because I love his take. If you caught one of the more recent shows, he was calling Baker Mayfield sort of the poor man's Burrow. And that was a tough pill to swallow, but his take really made sense. And if he doesn't face a lot of regression, he pretty much is a slightly poor man's Burrow, but with better athleticism. And that would add up in here. Baker has a tendency to try to go get that first down on his own too when he needs to. So I think he's going to have a lot of little 2-3 point plays here where he gets the rush for half, he gets the first down for 1, 5 yards. That's 2 point play right there. I like that a lot. Yeah, I kind of agree. I think we're still talking about Trey Henderson there. Yeah, and that is the question, isn't it? Is the wide receiver better there? All right, let's talk through this pick. I'm going to make it pretty quick. I don't want to give myself too much of an edge here, but I do want to kind of talk through where I'm thinking this is a good spot that I wasn't really paying too much attention to. So let's just take a quick peek at the positions on the board. Here's kind of how I'd play it. First, going to look at just to see what kind of quarterbacks we have available. So it's Purdy and Love. Jordan Love actually does run the ball a little bit. Lawrence is still available. There's just a lot of quarterbacks that are in a similar range for me here. I do like Purdy and do like Love, and I do think they both use their legs a little bit. Looking at other positions, wide receiver for me, I don't see anything volume here. Right, DJ Moore is the closest thing to volume that's pretty good. I do kind of like that. I think he's going a little bit late for the volume he should have, but I know there's a lot of mouths to feed. I think people are a little bit scared. James Conner, volume. So we've got some older running backs. We kind of get into this pretty nasty range. You're definitely going to need to be queued up a little bit. So because the range is all kind of flat, I am just going to go ahead and take the quarterback here, just so I don't get boxed out of a tier, and we'll see how the draft develops. I have a lot of love for my boy Brock Purdy, and I think he uses his legs a little bit more. Not sure I love that pick, in all honesty. If I had to go back and think about that, yeah, I was going to say Bryce Young might be the better pick there with his legs a little bit. And honestly, Jordan Love, I think he rushes a little bit more this year too. This is the curse of streaming while drafting and not wanting to take too much time. Some of those spots are going to happen. That was definitely one of them. I don't think it is the best pick or the best play there, but I didn't see anything super, super obvious. And this is also a point in the draft. I just want to point out, when I went to go look over, the fact that you can't look at quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers, kind of brutal. I think when it comes to looking through the players, the actual app itself, because there aren't any running back spots or wide receiver spots. It's going to be tricky. You're really going to have to kind of have your own rankings and kind of make that work. Ooh, Anthony Richardson, spicy. I mean, if he somehow gets healthy and wins the job, right? Like, that is a mercurial pick if it works out. Warren goes, Hawk goes. There's kind of this lull where tight ends just kind of haven't been going. Back on me, DJ Moore still on the board. Caleb Johnson still on the board. I think Caleb Johnson is going to walk into a ridiculous amount of volume. And if I look down the board, the next couple of, there's another back I like here way more. It's way down the board. I'm not going to grab it, though. I'm going to play the ADP game. I am going to play the ADP game. I can't find my pick in time, so I have to go with DJ Moore only because I couldn't find Caleb Johnson. Straight up would have rather had Caleb Johnson there, but I did not want to time out on you guys, so my apologies. We'll see if the guy I want next round comes back. Props to you if you can spot who I would have picked there. I'm playing the ADP game. I definitely would have gone Caleb at 7, but I think there's a guy buried who absolutely needs to come up a little bit. I always play the ADP game in mocks with competitive folks like you guys, because I really want to test out, like, can I play that game? How sharp is sort of the early crowd? Do people kind of know? Are they looking? What do they find on a short clock too? Where does their head kind of go to? Because you got to make a pretty quick decision. A lot of value in not just doing the mock, but, you know, asking yourself, like, hey, what would I do different? How does this help me with my prep next time? So yeah, we'll see. Got to be queued up though. I urge you all to try talking into a microphone and looking at a camera while making draft picks, though. It will make you very, very dumb very, very quick. Looks like someone got sniped, Mr. Timothy. Where are you at, Timothy? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That round did get kind of snipey, didn't it? Hitting the end of QB tier, definitely a big advantage here. QB going too early for my liking for a lot of these non-rushing quarterbacks. Yeah, I agree with you, Ethan. I think a lot of it, though, is just the lack of reps in practice. You know how when you do super flex mocks, quarterbacks tend to, when you take it really seriously, they tend to go early, and the more comfortable you get with finding ranges later on you're comfortable with and looking at the way the board works in your favor a little bit later, I think you gain the confidence to go ahead and take quarterback later and later and later. But I think it's going to take a comfortability. You know, for me, for instance, I probably wouldn't have taken Purdy at all and would have taken a positional player, but I don't want to say panic pick. It's just a short clock. I think by the time we do 2 or 3 more of these, I'm going to try to run it more than one next week. I think you're going to see quarterbacks start sliding down the board a little bit. So good observation. I think that's one to keep in mind. Mock to mock. And that's a hardcore snipe there. Nick doing a lot of sniping today. Tony Pollard is ridiculous in this format. I'm just going to tell you right now, he's absolutely ridiculous. I think Tony Pollard is going to score more points than Chase Brown at the 3-7. Just tell you that right now, straight up. Tony Pollard is going to eat. He ate last year already, and the offense gets better. You know, even if Cam Ward is just like the middle of the road quarterback in the NFL, it's going to be a marketed upgrade. Yeah, he's pretty ridiculous value. One of my favorite values on the board right now. This entire round actually is kind of nuts. I love Judy. I think Cooper Kupp has the potential to be a ridiculous pick. But let's go ahead and make our pick, right? We've got the quarterbacks we could take for this. I'm probably just going to let the quarterbacks go and see them. So we're looking at volume, and we're looking at the wide receivers here. If you're looking at the board with me, I guess I could pull it up on the actual board over here if y'all want to see me kind of look through this one. So the way I go about this is tight ends just not happening, not enough volume, too volatile for me. None of these guys are volume plays. I mean, Pickens is actually kind of interesting to me, and Waddle started off as a PPR monster. Godwin, if it turns out he's healthy, he's a volume monster. I might have to take Godwin just on the upside. Ridley's a little bit buried. Are there any like super hidden values at running back? No, not quite. It's just not there. There's a lot of wide receivers I like better. Looks like running backs are a little bit dead. So we're going to have to take our favorite wide receivers, or I could probably take one more quarterback, but I'm just going to wait for a while on the quarterback situation. I'm going to take a shot that, here, let me unpause our draft here. My mistake. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take Waddle. It's a risky pick, but just remember his freshman year when he was a PPR monster. If Jonnu gets sent away at some point, and the splits with and without Tua were pretty ridiculous for Waddle, I'm not going to make a pro Waddle case. I'm going to make a pro range of outcomes. I'm shooting for the ceiling. I want to win a tournament, best ball style. If he ain't there, he ain't there, but I think his upside is significantly better than a lot of folks in this range if he hits. If he doesn't hit, whatever. But I do think he's kind of an upside player I want to take a shot on. Godwin was also heavily in consideration there. Remember, he was the #1 fantasy wide receiver to start the year last year before the injury. A lot of, will he start healthy? Will he? But this is kind of a tournament style draft where we're not looking to just do good to get into the playoffs and make moves, right? We are looking to draft a super team that hits enough that we can really make a deep run. So a tier of tight ends comes off the board. Some touchdown upside. I think their volume has gone down, but they're going alongside wide receivers who we absolutely don't see volume from, and the tight ends are getting a full extra point per reception here. So actually, I think that makes sense. When you compare like Pickens to Kelsey Andrews, I've got a little bit of soft spot for Pickens, but okay, I have a soft spot for Pickens, Ridley, and Pierce. So I have a soft spot for this entire Addison. Don't have a soft spot for him. So this is an instance where like Kraft, Kelsey, Andrews, I do like a lot more than Addison because that extra point I think just matters and it gives them a much more stable floor. It just gives them everything they need. Godwin came back to me. I'm not going to think twice. I'm just going to take a quick peek at the quarterback. Jordan Love's still there. No one really likes the quarterback, so I'm just going to go positional here. And sorry, I forgot to put this down. I'm not exactly reading the board too well. The Lord of Fanta really, really hitting the strategy. Literally does not have a wide receiver. That's awesome. I was really hoping someone would just go full that direction. One of the things to remember and consider too is, so one of the ways I like to draft, particularly in dynasty startups, right? I draft the least amount of running backs out of about everybody I know. I'll sometimes go hero RB, but sometimes I'm drafting my first running back, and it might be, a Caleb Johnson or something like that pretty late. And then my second running back will also be not back-to-back. But I will tend to end up with a lot of Bashal Toot and Jayton Ball, all the rookie handcuffs this year. A few of the high upside handcuffs that didn't quite hit last year, but we think have some runway. You're trying to think of some examples here. Even a Monty or something like that. There's just a couple guys at running back that I tend to go very, very deep handcuff, see what happens. Braylon Allen, stuff like that. I'll load up on those guys. In this particular format, Ethan, you got a bounce? Hey, appreciate you for dropping by, Ethan. Hope you have an awesome live draft in Seattle. Definitely love the analysis. Really, really good stuff. Thanks for hopping in chat with us. I hope you'll join again if you want. Follow us on follow us in all the places. Get Right Fantasy Network. But if you want to hop into our Discord, we should be running quite a few of these mocks. It's been a little bit tough to do a ton of them, but going into next week, I'd like to do at least 2 or 3 of them. We'll see what I have time for. I'm glad y'all could come out tonight, though. But Ethan, appreciate you, man. You're a real one, dude, and really good analysis. Great to have you in. See, perk. Hey, I appreciate it. Well, I can't wait to look at your draft and figure out, without knowing the settings, how did we do? Sometimes that's a pretty fun way to roll Friday night. Hey, it's the Godfather himself, the founder, Anthony, aka Rasta. Rasta, how you doing, man? Glad to have you in here, man. So glad to have you. Oh, we hold it down over here. You absolutely know. I think I've drank about 3 or 4 gallons of water. I was like on my deathbed last night and till about 5 or 6 o'clock today, but nothing like a Scott Fish draft to just wake you up. I may absolutely pass out after this, which you guys can't see on camera, as I'm just sweating down my back because that fever stuff is going on. So I am disgusting and horrible right now, but hopefully I don't look too terrible. And we're gonna have to make a pick here. So let's get ready to make a pick. Lord of Fanta, do your thing. Don't you dare draft a wide receiver. No? Okay, well, I do like Shaheed quite a bit. All right. Quick pause. Let's take a peek. Let's talk through it. Okay, what do we got here? Hitting all just to check the quarterbacks. Is there a big tier break here at quarterback? I mean, I like Trevor, but I also like Penix. And if we're going to go, is there any more rushing quarterbacks that are available later on that I'm not really thinking of? No, this is kind of it, right? Dart or something makes a spot, but that's just not a pick that's happening. So how many quarterbacks? It's crazy. You don't have to draft 1, 2, or 3. You can do whatever you want to. But we'll keep in mind that that's at this range of I think after Lawrence, I still like Lawrence this year, but the rest of this is kind of just meh. Interesting to note. In general, I don't want to finish off that tier. I want to look elsewhere. Loveland's interesting. I just don't know. I like him in Dynasty a whole lot more than I like him in this type of a redraft format, right? Okay, screaming value here. This is why we waited on tight end. Right now we're in Dynasty season. I think a lot of the fading values in Dynasty and redraft season hasn't quite come up yet. There's 2 of them screaming him. I think David Njoku, that questionable tag will have everyone fading him a little bit, but he is a volume king, and I would bet that he is more of the second weapon than Tillman in that offense. Ingram gets a nice boost there too, but I think Njoku is absolutely where I want to be doing. He's a volume pass catcher with that extra bump. I think I'm going to go him. Just looking at other things we could look at, there are some wide receivers that I kind of like a little bit. Okay, there's a wide receiver I like a little bit. Try not to give too much away here. Likely, I think, is an interesting upside pick. I think it's not reaching too much. And then I think running back is about dead at this point, unless you're banking on injury. But I don't think the handcuffs are great in this particular format. So I think this is where you switch over to volume wide receiver and our favorite tight ends. That's what round are we in? Okay, 10. Mental note, round 10. Okay. I think the handcuffs probably die up like Sharps, like Mace. But at that particular point, I think we have to notice round 10 plus, change the strategy a little bit. Running backs are probably going to be dead. Keep an eye on these tight ends. I'm glad I waited around, but I wouldn't have waited too much more. So let's go ahead and grab Njoku. And we'll see if one of these guys we like comes back to us. There's another I was going to say Ingram. Obviously, I think when I started talking about Njoku, he was going to go. But I mean, Ingram and Njoku, I think they're both pretty fantastic in that spot there. Like him for sure more than Pitts, definitely. Who is an interesting pick this year. If he hits pretty hard. Pitts versus Likely. Pitts is probably the better starter. Likely just has more upside, but I don't think this is the upside type of format. This is the draft guys you kind of know. I think we have a few more rounds before we can really go into the let's give it a shot type of players, but we'll see. Lawrence finally goes. I think he's a fine pick there. I think if there's some other positions that if you really like your guy to go get him, but I think Lawrence kind of ends the tier for me a little bit. Get back to the chat a little bit. Sorry guys, I'm trying to give you a good commentary and try not to make too terrible of picks. But I do want to answer some questions too. So let me see how we could get back to this a little bit. Who did I miss? Aiden, one of the regs. Do you think a wide receiver at the top of their depth chart would score more here than a more talented wide receiver too? I think Ridley versus Waddle. So that was obviously a little bit ago. Yeah, I think so. I do think that your wide receiver one, I think it's a quarterback thing. Some quarterbacks just have a pretty elevated first read situation. When you go with like the wide receiver one in a rough offense, I think the non-sexy part is you feel like they have capped upside, right? But in this format, that volume is king. I don't think you need like all the yards and the touchdowns to go for the elite ceiling. You really just need a bunch of catches, right? So in that case, I do like a guy like Ridley a little more. In that particular example, Waddle for me is kind of a PPR guy, but I think your point makes sense. Let me just pause here real quick and let's make a pick. All right, looking back at the board, what happened? Okay, Loveland went, and I think that's a fine pick. Guy I was really hoping came back to me, Darnell Mooney. I think, even though I have Drake London, I'm all about it. I think Mooney is one of the stone cold best picks in redraft, and stone cold will be like one of the like MVP caliber picks in Scottish Bowl this year. Money pick, tumultuous. I don't know if you were like sweating when I was talking about it, but I bet you were a little bit. That is a spicy pick. Also, I think Warren underrated. Caleb Johnson, I do think gets a lot of volume, but Warren is just on the field and gets the ball in a lot of different ways. Makes a lot of sense. It's funny that Pittman went right before me here because I'm pretty sure I'm going to take Josh Downs in the volume is king category. And I think Pittman has a tendency to get a little bit banged up, just like all their quarterbacks. And Josh Downs, I just think is a really, really underrated, solid wide receiver. And I think he is going to eat an average 10 targets a game. And I think he's going to do his best to look like a poor man's Garrett Wilson in that offense, who finishes the wide receiver, I think 9 or 10 in some formats last year. So I'm not going to look, I could look at the board, but I already kind of have looked a little bit. And I don't think I'm going to find better than Downs here. So let's go ahead and grab our boy Josh Downs. My pick for the technical sort of wide receiver one in that offense as written. I do like Michael Pittman in general as a player. I think he I think he's getting unfairly buried a little bit, but it's a situation. Like he's a good NFL player, I should say. I don't want to bury the human being, but his fantasy situation is a little bit dicey, right? But kudos to you. I remember when I was in on Pittman, the talent, and I think he's still solid. Hope he gets traded one day. I think that would be nice for him. What do we got here? Breaking ball. Yep. Good to have breaking ball here. Okay, I got to hand it to you. Breaking ball, by the way, absolutely pulled off a masterclass of a trade with me in Dynasty, which is not easy to do. I am a greedy son of a bee every now and again, depending on how many beers I've had. I get really, really less greedy if I've had a few too many, as some people can testify to. But managed to get Bucky Irving off me, which I didn't think was possible. And after getting Bucky Irving off me, he will be the last share of Bucky Irving that I let go. It was a good trade, but I got to hand it to Breaking Ball. That was absolutely a wonderful trade. Hit him up in Discord; he can tell you all about it. Kind of stomp on me a little bit. Yeah. I definitely thought he was going to go. He's just really buried in ADP, but I think he's beautiful for this format. Both those guys, Mooney, Downs. We'll see if I can get to my next version of that guy. I got a few more of them left in the tank, so we'll have to see. Let's try not to talk about him too much ahead of time. Likely goes. That's someone I was kind of thinking about while we are. So I'm keeping the draft board up here just so you guys can kind of see what. You know what? I can actually move. Here, I'll move my head around a little bit for you so you can see that a little bit better. If there's a better layout format that you guys like or want to, definitely please comment. It's not something I'm always paying attention to. Like you guys, sometimes I just key into the draft and the picks and forget about stuff. Quick pause if you guys don't mind. Let's talk about it. Let's look at it. All right, so we had a couple guys go. Let's take a peek at quarterbacks. Two with staff. Yeah, probably just not happen. Geno's kind of interesting. I have Genty, so it's probably not a thing, but Geno has been known to rush a little bit. I just don't think he probably matches up with what's on the board. So, tight ends in this range, we are down to the, Goddard, Freiermuth. Okay, that's pretty ugly. We got some rookies down low where we might look at. Again, handcuff running backs. We said no. Even if they get the role, I'm just not loving it. So what's our wide receivers here? Kind of ugly. Kind of a little bit ugly here, to be honest. If I had to, I don't even want to say the wide receivers I like. I mean, I'm a Chicago guy, so like Trey Harris, Luther Bird, me like, but those are not a volume guys whatsoever. Kyle Williams, the new rookie. Remember when we were really in on Polk, though, right? I mean, there's a lot of ambiguity there. Interesting to take a shot on. I'm gonna go with tight ends here, though. They get a bump, and I think this ADP isn't giving them the nod. Yeah, there's some wide receivers down there too, but I'm gonna take a position of scarcity, I believe, which is there's still some tight ends I think I like, and I think once I take a couple, I think people are gonna look down and probably see there's some good stuff down there a little bit. So. I'm looking at Mason Taylor. I'm looking at Brenton Strange. I think Mason Taylor has a pretty clear path to be the second pass catcher in that offense. So I'm going to take a shot on him. And then I'm going to go ahead and guess that there is 0% chance that Strange comes back to me. But if he does, good chance I'm looking at him. There are some handcuffs that I do like. Garendo is absolutely one of them. I'm pretty in on CMC this year, but if that goes poorly, I am super in on Garendo all the time. I think Garendo might be my highest owned player in the entirety of the Dynasty format. He's on at least half of my rosters. I wouldn't be surprised if it's closer to 75. So the handcuffs do go off, and I do think there's a place for him. Got to be honest, I am probably not taking handcuffs for like another 2 rounds. I do think there are some other values here. So we can get to that. So Burden looks good. I'm still reaching down the board here a little bit, though. I do think there's still value at tight end. I like Brenton Strange quite a bit at the tight end position. Beck, I think, is a nice pick. I am going to go ahead and just take Wandale, though. He was a volume king. I think he might continue to be. And he's basically going to function for me as a handcuff to Neighbors to some extent. So, I mean, if Neighbors were to go down, Wandale's volume would be so obscene. He wouldn't be that crazy of a replacement, to be honest. And I think I can start them together. I'm a little bit worried that Slayton's a little bit of a sleeper, but he is still more of a deep threat, so I'm not super worried. But definitely happy to get Wandell there. There's still 2 or 3 tight ends that I do like a little bit later on. There's some other guys there. So interesting. We'll see. Zach Ertz, I like that pick. Super buried in ADP, but quite nice. If you guys kind of see my queue here, this was just I was trying to find a way to sort of organize players that I wanted to at least highlight later on in the draft, but I'll have to come up with a better format to kind of get on screen for that kind of a thing. Perk take Strange. Yeah, I like that pick quite a bit. Kind of going to get your guys section here. Mr. Magic, how you doing, my guy? Glad to have you here, man. Thanks for stopping by. If you got any questions, we can answer for you. We're doing a Scott Fishbowl mock draft right now. Definitely get. If anybody has any questions, by the way, I will try to get to them probably later than I should, but I will certainly do my best to get on over there for you. Rashad White goes off the board. So it looks like we still got a lot of handcuff love. If I look at the last 2 rounds, Javonte, I just want to throw a shout out to the captain, Javonte. Really, really nice pick there. If I wasn't so enamored with Downs that it wasn't even worth looking at other picks, Javonte is sneaky good. Camp reports have Jaden Blue practicing with the second string pretty exclusively, and Javonte looks like he's going to be more and more just kind of the guy. I think the fantasy community we all decided that Javonte is a swear word. It's disgusting. Don't say it in front of your kids. It's just ugly and icky. And I think that just buries a guy 20 spots in ADP that probably is unwarranted. I don't love him, but I am ready to take a little bit of value in this particular format. I'm looking for guys like Javonte. I think that's a really nice pickup. If I was to talk about a handcuff that I do like, though, I'm going to give a little love over here to Tajay Spears, too. I think there's several things at play that are pretty good for Tajay Spears. The first one's a negative. I'll just say it. His prospect profile, we all know that he has barely any knee left. He had a pretty serious knee injuries, I think, in college. We didn't like him in the scouting draft process because he's already got a short lifespan as a running back. What's he going to do with a knee that's got issues? I don't know. Modern rehab, modern medicine. I don't know. I think he's a guy that on his second contract, it's over. But right now, they didn't take a running back in the draft. Khalil Mullings, the converted linebacker, not really much of a threat in my opinion. But Spears was averaging more yards per touch than Derrick Henry was. Remember when they were together for a little bit there? I don't know. I like Spears. I think he's a hard runner. I liked him on the field. He catches the passes. I think he's good enough that if Pollard were to go down, I think he's going to be in for a pretty good role. And I think he's one of the few handcuffs in this range that has absolute standalone value. I mean, if that offense gets just a little bit better, their wide receivers they have a crap ton of rookies in the team plus Calvin Ridley. Tyler Lockett is nice over there too, but we're going to go ahead and take, where'd he go? Did we get him? Did we get him in time? Yeah, we did get him in time. I know they have 2 billion wide receivers, but you can't put them all on the field at the same time. And this is a tough one for me because Otten's not a volume play, but I just like Otten. And I have to be honest, I had 2 seconds. He was not going to be my actual pick, but I think he is okay. There is another tight end I would have taken over him, and there is a wide receiver. Yeah, a tight end and a wide receiver I would have taken over him, but close enough. I'm not going to yeah, it's Gesicki. There you go. Attaboy. Gesicki for Cincinnati. A lot of things to like about Gesicki that are better than Otten. So just pretend I drafted Gesicki because that's what would have happened. Cincy has kind of a target funnel 2 wide receiver offense, which means Gesicki gets on the field a lot, stays in the field a lot. If you're gonna double bracket chase, put somebody solid on T, maybe with some shadow coverage, and then Gesicki's just going to be open a lot. And I think he's going to catch a lot of passes. I don't think he's going to get to 10 targets and get crazy. But I think there's a world where he just gets 7 targets a game. And is kind of like a slightly worse version of TJ Hawkinson, where he just kind of eats a lot consistently and helps move the chains. Good offense, bad defense. Joe Burrow throwing the ball. Only 2 other guys to really compete with. That's a lot of good things there. I like that quite a bit. Let's see if I can remember to actually pause my clock this time a little bit. And It's funny. I literally have my queue sitting here so that people, I guess, can kind of know what I have queued up there. But we'll see. Let's pause and think about this just a little bit with you guys. So here's where let's look at the last round or two. Let's take a bit of a think. So after our last pick, Daniel Jones, nice pick too this late. He does run the ball a little bit. Once you got to lose by trying to, that's kind of a fun pick actually. I don't mind that. Love the shot on Dobbins. Who knows? I think there's other picks I would make, but I like Dobbins in general. I don't think I like him here, but I like him in general. Devin Neal, that's a handcuff that I like. I think it's ambiguous enough where if Kamara goes down, I do think that could be a good spot. Algier, yeah, high low. Corum, I don't like as much. Algier, quite a bit. A lot of the handcuffs are going. I think these are pretty sexy names for handcuffs. I think there's some wide receivers that we have left to think about. Tillman here is in serious consideration for me. I like the volume he could run into. I think he's going to have some soft coverage because I do think Njoku is going to be good and require some coverage. And Judy, of course. I just think he's a situation where he's not talented enough to be a one or anything, but I think he can slot in as a pretty decent two in an offense. So he's in consideration. I like Jalen Noel quite a bit. I'm a little bit higher on Higgins in terms of getting in the field, but this is an interesting pick. If Nico were to go down at any point, or if Noel just shows up a little bit more in camp, that could be kind of interesting and spicy. Then there's just guys, if you go down here, there are some rookies that I like quite a bit. There's still some rookie tight ends that make some sense. So I don't want to call them all out, but this is a spot where I think you can reach really far down the board, kind of go with your gut. I'm going to start playing the ADP game on some guys that I like. It's the fun part is you can just queue up a bunch of guys you like and don't have to worry about positions. So let's just start there. I'm going to start with Tillman and see how that goes. See what everyone's feeling. And we're going the full round, so it's going to get dicey towards the end for sure. We'll see how that goes. And I'll probably not pause my picks. I'll just take what I like. Wilson, brother, it's been a minute, man. Glad to have you back. Man, when's the last time we had you on a stream, brother? I know we messaged back and forth on X and the other platforms and whatnot, but man, good to have you here, bro. Love to see it. We got over here. Jackson Dart, you legs quite a bit at Old Miss. Yeah, I like me some Jackson Dart. I just don't see how he takes over the job early enough to like matter. It's like I think it's a win more play. Does that make sense? Like I think the team is astute and smart enough to say, hey, it would be a mistake if we rush him onto the field. We're not a Super Bowl team this year, probably next. Let's make sure we do the right things with our quarterback of the future and treat him as such, treat him as the quarterback of the future, give him the Jordan Love treatment. I think that's the best play for him. I think if Dart gets on the field, it's just a little too soon. If he does in this format, I still like him. I'm not saying I hate him. I'm just saying for the draft pick, I would be a little bit worried that if your team's good enough that you didn't need him going into the playoffs and then he's a league winner once you're already good, it's kind of the definition of a win more characteristic. And while that is valuable because this is a top-heavy tournament-style format where you need that, I think there's probably a few other directions I would go. You need so much to smash go right for that to be a I think it's still it's not a bad pick, but I think I would pivot a little bit. But that being said, I mean, who are we taking him over, right? I mean, this is when you look at who's left, would I take Dart over Tillman? Would I take him over maybe a no? Would I take him over a Jalen? Yeah, actually, Dart definitely over Milroe for sure. Theo Johnson, right? Theo Johnson's kind of an interesting one. I know he was injured, but if he comes back in time, he could be okay. There's just still a couple other guys here that I still like. You've kind of convinced me that the Dart pick there in the 14th is actually probably fine. Yep, official. We are doing the third round reversal again in SBF 15. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right, let's make a pick. You know what? Let's see if we can do this without pausing. We are going to, I'm going to pause a little bit, talk about it, and then it's probably the last one we pause. So we're in the super late rounds. We got about 5 or 6 picks left. Obviously, my queue is running a little bit thin. We know at this spot we are looking for high upside handcuffs who will walk into volume if they get the job. We are looking to avoid handcuffs that will step into ambiguity in a bigger timeshare or lead to an immediate trade, right? That's kind of what we're looking for. So like Dylan Sampson, I love him, but I think he's still developmental on the team. If Judkins goes down, I think that's still going to be a pretty messy timeshare with the guy right next to him here and in Jerome Ford, right? With Ollie Gordon, I'm not sure I love Jalen Wright as a handcuff as much as I used to. So looking at some other guys that we like a little bit farther down the board, Josh Palmer over in Buffalo. I don't know if we can get to volume, but I think he's a more sure-handed pass catcher, a savvier route runner, and a better NFL veteran than what they have on the team currently. And I would feel a lot better about it if Khalil Shakir weren't already there and kind of does that role pretty nice. So maybe there's some limited upside there. Pat Bryant could win out the wide receiver 2 role. I know the camp hype is all, Devon Vele, but I think Pat Bryant, absolutely, if he wins the wide receiver 2 spot, Cortland Sutton is a little bit older, possibly a midseason trade away. If Pat Bryant walks into he could be like a surprise wide receiver 1, actually. I think he's probably more of a wide receiver 2 in that team. I don't think Sutton's going anywhere, but Pat Bryant's probably where my lean is at this point. Looking at the tight ends, don't like him. Not taking Amari Cooper. I do think Keenan Allen's a little spicy if he signs somewhere. I don't think he's dead yet. Adonai Mitchell's the opposite of a volume play, so a little bit tough, but still probably valuable. Juwan Johnson is definitely a tight end I have left on my board. He got the bag. The team should be trash, but tight ends get a lot of points, and he might be good enough for a flex. I think there's better alternatives like Handcuff and Woody Mark. So the point of this was to look at wide receiver versus running back to see, do we start going handcuffs of our own, or do we have to go wide receiver, and is the tight ends even worth it? In my opinion, tight ends are handcuff tight ends at this point. The running backs have some value, but I still think there's wide receivers with more value. If I see, like, Braylon Allen would be my pick here, but Lord of Fanta is really good at drafting, so he took one of my favorite guys. So this will be a spot where we can look at like the Dylan Sampsons of the world. I still think there's wide receivers that I like before they dry up completely. So let's go ahead and take our boy Pat Bryant. Or we'll just auto pick to we'll go ahead and auto pick to Keenan Allen. Go ahead and do that. No problem. Could be a better pick. We'll see where he signs. Ray Gamer, what's going on, man? How you doing? Glad to have you in here. If you got any questions I can answer for you, I would absolutely love to punt my picks a little bit further, but at least while I'm doing that, I'd love to answer some questions for you for sure. But hey, man, glad to have you here, man. You spend your Friday night with us, so I'm a little under the weather, so I don't have a cold beverage to cheers you, but here's a little water, man. My guy. Aiden. Vele is also a little bit old. He's not just a little bit older, man. He's at least 27, right? He's not 20, he's 27, right? Yeah, I think he's got 5 years on Pat Bryant, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. I don't hate Vele. I just think, yeah, of course he's got camp hype. Everybody looks good in camp. He's also 5 years older and more physically gifted than Pat Bryant, but I think Pat Bryant's just a significantly better wide receiver. We'll see. I don't hate Vele. He just fits an archetype that, like, I will consistently be fine being wrong on Vele. I dropped him in a Dynasty roster, even after the he looks good news. Maybe someone can fab dump. Wilson, I am running solo tonight, my friend. All of our boys, they got lives going on. They got stuff going on. So I got to hold down the fort tonight. All beyond valid reasons for everybody. Won't enamor you with all that, but they got a lot going on tonight. So yeah, it's just going to be me. All right. And, I don't even think we need to pause here because our boy Pat Bryant's still on the board. So let's go ahead and take him here. And we'll just go ahead and talk through some guys that we might look at to kind of round out our boards a little bit. I still like Dylan Sampson. I wouldn't mind taking a shot on him. Who could walk into volume? Are there any handcuffs we do still like? Guys like D-Hop in Baltimore, I might take a shot on. DJ, okay, so DJ Giddens is the type of volume back. If JT were to go down, I do think Giddens walks into a volume role. Don't hate that. Jordan James, you got McCaffrey, and Garendo could go down, unfortunately. So that's something that's interesting, which much rather have Garendo. We still got AD Mitchell. We got a Dwarner. I'm just kind of giving away my picks, I suppose, at this point, but that is okay. That is the whole point in the sharpest lobby. That's going to happen anyways. And we're here to get better and level up. And you guys don't have to agree with me as well. Woody Marks, elite pass catcher. And Mixon can't keep getting away with it, right? He just keeps getting older. He stays so good. So we got to do something there. Like that Hawkins Hunter pick. Like him. I think Hawkins Hunter is a better running back than Blake Corum. And I do think their starter signs a contract. I just think McVay has some trust there. Yeah, there goes Giddens. That's a good one. Okay, well, I could technically handcuff my tight end with Fannin. That's actually kind of an interesting play here. Don't mind that. I don't see how Isaac Tesla gets on the field enough this year, but I'm absolutely going to take a shot there. There's too many other options for Brashard Smith to be crazy good this year. I think he's a great dynasty pick. I don't like him. I'd much rather go with common on guy. Oh, yeah, dude. Will Shipley still here, too? If Saquon were to go down, my goodness. That's pretty fantastic. I like that a lot. Yeah, I like that quite a bit. That might even be the pick there. Tyler Shue, that was one I was wondering about. It's interesting because you just haven't... Any quarterback can just decide to be good in the pros versus college. I think Tyler Shue is a pretty fantastic pick here, to be honest. I wonder if there's any other quarterbacks I'm passing up because I'm not thinking about it here. That's an interesting, like Russell Wilson and Shadur Sanders. I have neighbors, so of course I have to take Russell Wilson here. I don't want to, but it's strictly because I think at this point I have Wandale and neighbors. So, you just kind of gotta fully crank the gun back and let it ride, right? And I would have seriously considered Shadur, honestly. Yeah, it is Shuck. It is absolutely Shuck, Aiden. That is pronunciation. It's so embarrassing when you're streaming too, because when you're just hanging out with the boys, you know all the stats and you know all the names and the pronunciation, and then you're looking at a couple of screens and you blank every time, my man. So I deserve to be called out every time, though. You were absolutely correct. That is Tyler Shuck. Explain to me how that's Tyler Shuck, by the way. I think he needs some explaining to do. I would love to see Mama Shuck hop on a YouTube stream and tell us all the history of the Shuck name and why it's Shuck. That'd be a banger. I'd like that. Okay. Yeah, we're not going with Joe Flacco. That's not going to be happening today. Great. A little spicy over there in tight end land. Okay, I think here it is probably between, do I take the tight end, Juwan Johnson? Just not enough upside. Yeah, I think you guys are right with the handcuffs. So which handcuff do we go with? I'm going to go with the highest upside handcuff. That is Will Shipley. Amazing O-line, amazing offense. Will Shipley, I could probably be a pretty decent running back in that offense at this point. So I'm definitely going to go with who I feel will have very little value outside of handcuff. But if he gets a shot, that could be pretty dangerous. I like that a lot. Xavier Restrepo. Like him too. Really don't know what to make of the Tennessee pass catchers. My brother lives out in Nashville. I was really, really hoping he could give me some super low to the ground information on Tennessee. But he's more of a music guy, so he's not helping me too much on this one. Yeah, interesting. I feel like these last... Let's just look at the board and talk about like some ranges that were kind of interesting. So, I had at least... Did I have a solid target in the 15th when I took Tillman? I had to look quite a bit, and it wasn't a smash pick. Yeah, as soon as you get to maybe the 15th round, let's look up a little bit, was 14 bet. I still liked Gesicki in 14. I was very happy in 13 with the options. I was okay in 14. I would have rather taken Gesicki. Would have been pretty thrilled with it. Couple options left at 15, but not much. Oh, so it's really round 15 for me. That maybe there's a straggler or two, like Braylon a little bit later, but sounds like once we get to 15 or 16, we are going to want, because the ADP is always going to be pretty atrocious on Sleeper. No offense, Sleeper. I love you. It's, why I'm saying that, right? It's Scott Fishbowl, and we can't do the right ADP. Sleeper, everyone become a sponsor. Love you guys. But I think we're trying to get better at this format so we can take this tournament down. We're really going to need to be queued up with our late targets list, and we're going to look for correlation. The one thing I haven't really gone in depth with is because this is a tournament and it can function a little bit like best ball because you have just such infinite flexibility with your roster. Let's go ahead and get ready to make a pick here. And I'll finish that in a second. Cavante. Interesting. Okay. So yeah, this is where, okay, is there a world where, Olave goes down, Shuck is pretty good, and Juwan Johnson, converted wide receiver, is actually decent? Everything here feels bad, so I am going to take him. But we're going to look at some other options and see if there's any other high value. What I was saying is it's probably not going to happen here. 30-second pick clocks. We're going pretty quick. If I do a pre-recorded draft, or if we do one where we've got a few more of the Get Right members here potentially, or if you guys are cool taking a longer pause and really going in depth on strategy, we may look at that a little bit later on, because I think starting probably in as early as around 15, we want to have a plan for how do we maximize our correlation with the rest of our roster to hit the most elite upside we can, so that these late picks aren't just late dart throws, but correlated late dart throws that make sense with the rest of our lineup, so that they are those sort of elite ceiling plays, because we're not looking for stability here. We're looking for as good as it gets, and that can be even better if it's not in a vacuum, but specific to our build. I didn't have too many examples of that myself, unfortunately. But if I could find some, right, stacking up multiple players on a team, because it's sort of a deep bench format. Everybody knows how to handcuff running backs, which makes a ton of sense. I think you can also, to some extent, handcuff your wide receivers just a little bit in ambiguous wide receiver rooms. So we're looking at Torrey Horton here. We're looking at De'Ami Brown. I don't love Taj Brooks. I don't think there's enough legitimate upside there. I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. Maybe some Burton, maybe some Isaiah Davis. I still like Torrey a little bit, though. This is absolutely one of those, normally I would take a handcuff running back because they tend to have more upside this late. I'm just not seeing how they make my roster, even if they get the job in a lot of ways. Like Taj, I just don't think he's the guy, because they still have what's his face there. And I think that would become, like, this is an example of Taj wouldn't get the job. It would be a timeshare. And so I think it's sort of fake upside. Kendra being there is kind of interesting, actually. I think Kendra is a good pick there. I mean, we spiced him up a little while ago, and it just never kind of came to fruition. But he's not bad. Yeah, Ty Felton is getting steamed up a little bit. Yeah, some camp. Kamir looks good. Elijah Moore in Buffalo. I did talk about Isaiah Davis. Well, Savion Williams for good measure is an option. I'm just kind of giving some names here. Just some name. Polk is buried, but what if something happened? Do we have any more running backs? Yeah, there's just none. So you guys, I think you guys did kind of something astute where when all these handcuff running backs go, I think the answer is it's not always just take the next because you're worried about the tier running out. It is a little bit of, I just think the value might be a little bit better at wide receiver in terms of ultimate upside. Like I'm taking, rookie wide receiver threes, Troy Horton, I think he's their wide receiver 3 right now. But if Kupp goes down, I see a world where I think he's a good wide receiver in a good position. Bryant, ambiguous wide receiver group, could do something, could sign, sort of ambiguous. That's my version of how you can kind of get a handcuff wide receiver. It's not so much a handcuff as it's ambiguous wide receiver rooms where there's a lot of room for the targets to shuffle around a little bit. It's not pure best ball. You've got to start the right one, but it's a deep enough bench that you have those options. If I was looking at the overall build, I took way less running backs than I would have thought. It seemed to be that everyone else just went RB heavy. It really just wasn't available for me in many spots. Interesting. Let's finish out the draft with a nice pick. I'm going to go Isaiah Davis or Savion Williams or a super upside quarterback that's not there. So it's going to be Isaiah Davis as a Breece Hall handcuff in case he gets the nod over Braylon Allen. Like that pretty good. Lord of Fanta, Ty Felton, really, really nice pick there. Him and Torrey Horton, I like quite a bit. I like them in Dynasty. I even like them as, like, I think they could surprise this year to some extent. And that's a draft, folks. That's a Scott Fishbowl 15 mock draft in the books. Man, just thanks for hanging out with me tonight, man. This was a good time. Highly competitive. Lots of reaching down the board for good picks. Lots of opinions, right? Lots of called shots here. I don't know. What do we think? You guys that are still hanging with me and awake and whatnot, what do we think about the draft? Where we've been focused on all these crazy runs. Maybe let's scroll back up a little bit and remember what we did earlier with the actual starters here, right? So let's kind of look at here. We're starting 11, right? So you can kind of look through about round 11, 12, right? And that's going to be kind of your starting lineups and yeah, because this is kind of positionless to some extent. Probably is your first 11 picks you're starting, something like that. So what do we think? What do we think? I said going into this, I was going to be extremely running back heavy. How did that not happen? I want to roll through this. We took Neighbors over JT. Something when I go into the lab later on this weekend, I'll be looking at, like, really how good is Taylor compared to Neighbors on some different range of outcome projections, and I'll be curious to see how that comes out. I could see a world where Taylor is just the pick there. Very much good. Part of me thought Neighbors is just going to get so many first downs along with what Taylor would do that Neighbors is kind of like a running back in this format, so we'll have to see. London was maybe a mistake with, like, Kyron still on the board, or honestly a Judkins. I think I'd do in this format Judkins over all of that. Is Judkins a better pick than London at 3.6? That's a legit question, chat. I went London at 3.6. I was considering London or Ladd McConkey or London Ladd, I think. Or I was thinking about going and reaching for Garrett Wilson. Between London, Ladd, Wilson, you can pick the pick which one you like. But should we have seriously considered Judkins there a little bit? All right, that's one I'm gonna go back and look. And I at first glance, guys, I mean, touchdowns are great. London should score a couple of them, but at first glance, I gotta be honest, Quinshawn might be a better pick than London there. Might be a better pick there. Yeah. So my first quarterback, 4.7. Okay. Knowing that we can get Lawrence in the 10th or this other stuff, and we don't even have to start him. Should we have gone Rashee Rice? Or in this case, Judkins was still on the board. Judkins versus Bo Nix. What do you guys think? Judkins over this quarterback range? Yeah, Timothy. That's kind of what I'm thinking. It just felt like an ADP mistake, right? To take him over London, play the ADP game. But yeah, was Nix one of those picks where it's like, hey, the more we do these, the more you'll let quarterbacks go because you know where they go. And I think you hit it. I think we hit that. We could have passed on Nix. When you look at where, like, May and Caleb went, we could have absolutely waited and got someone still in that tier, and we would not have missed out on one of the last ultra high volume running backs. So I think what we did is we gifted somebody else a scarcity asset, and we took something that is a little bit more replaceable. And that's just bad draft strategy. So, hey, we leveled up. We learned. That's a good one. We're getting better. It's not how good our team looks. It's how much we learned so we can smoke everybody else who was too busy, roster baiting over their mocks to not figure out how to be better on the next time, right? Good observation there. What you have here, breaking ball. Makes questions often having to play volume and adjust points to such, which really makes you think of deep-seated quality players. That's Tony Pollard for me right there. Breaking. That is absolutely where I see like a Tony Pollard at, right? He is a good player. We always thought he was a good player when he was leaving Dallas. PFF had him as a very highly graded running back. Towards the late end of the season when we weren't loving him in the next season. he was a volume back. Their offense got better. He's quality. Yeah, there's going to be a couple of those. Even like Pacheco at 7.5. I think he's a quality player. Had a lot of bad things happen. He could come back into volume. He might not, but he could, and he's quality. Connor at 7.2 might be an absolute monumental steal, right? Connor last year in this format, when he's injured, you don't play him, but we'll have to look at some of these individual picks and say, ooh, going into our next one when we kind of reset our own ADPs. And if we had time, if I didn't have to set up a stream and do some other stuff, right? If I was in your seats, right, you're really queuing up, using the stars, using the cues, really, you're going to need a good visual overlay. I think for Sleeper in particular, the ability to, star a player, I think that's put them on the watch list, and using your cue. I think using both as kind of a visual is going to be useful. Use the technology you have in front of you. So moving on a little bit, I know I'm just analyzing my draft here. I don't think I have time to go full ham into analyzing a bunch of teams. What I plan on doing, though, is over the weekend, I hope to record a quick video where I just break this down, talk about some picks I like, picks maybe I would have changed if I were you. So if you want to watch it back and see what you think about that, I think that's going to be better for pre-recorded content where I can, off camera, really take a look, take some notes, and then make a nice, clean, concise analysis for you. And that video will go out. And so wait for that a little bit later on. I think whatever I can give you right now is going to be so off the cuff. It's going to be just not as good as it could be, not as valuable as it could be. I might pick a favorite team or two here in closing. But I'm probably just going to roll through mine because it's fresh in my head and I know where I was at each pick along the way. I think it's probably more valuable compared where your head was at with a similar pick. So we talked about the Knicks. Definitely, yeah, Judkins for sure. That was a mistake, big mistake. I would have taken Judkins there. To be fair, I would have taken Walker over Knicks there too, if I'm being real with you. Moving on, Devontae, I don't regret though. Devontae, no, Kamara's fantastic, but range of outcomes has a lot of risk there. Is Kamara's upside worth the risk reaching over Adams, right? There's no other running backs. Connor, maybe. I think Kamara, Connor. I know Connor went way later, but I think Connor should belong right next to Kamara personally. So this was a Devontae, Connor, Kamara, or do I take one of the quarterbacks? Let's pretend I didn't have Knicks. Would I still go Adams, or do I go one of these quarterbacks? LA should be a 2-target funnel system, I think. And I think Devontae can probably average 10 targets a game. I haven't looked at it, but I don't think the Rams have a particularly fantastic defense, and I think they have a pretty tough division. Yeah, I still think Adams is fine there. I mean, I thought Adams belonged around earlier anyways. I'm just going to stay bullish on him. I think that's a fine pick. Moving on to the Purdy pick. I thought this was sort of a tier break. The mental, like, hey, if you run out of tiers at quarterback, like, you just know there's going to be you made a mistake. In this case, I don't know. You just don't even have to start a quarterback. There's a justification to, like, hear me out. What if you just don't take quarterbacks at value? Because if you're ever going to start one in the super flex, maybe it's a Rich went at the 6.12, right? So you'd have to get the value a little bit later on. But the darts in the 14th, that type of thing, the Daniel Jones and dart in like 13, 14, is that the better way to play this than taking a quarterback in the middle rounds? I don't know. That is something I'll be looking at a little bit more. I've got to look at the comparable scoring between this tier of quarterback and where they would have finished with this tier of wide receiver running back. So I will get some notes on that too, hopefully for the analysis, so you guys can check that out a little bit, and I'll be chatting about this in Discord too, for sure. Because I think we're bringing four other, either fans or members of Get Right to a Scott Fish Bowl. I think I'm bringing 3 or 4. I got 3 or 4 of our own guys into the Chicago Live. Super happy and proud about that. It's definitely the best gift I could give back to our community. Is you guys have been cool to me. At least I can do is send a couple emails out to John and say, hey man, I got some hardcore draft degenerates. You need them in Chicago. So absolutely, I'm kind of treating this like a chess tournament where I want to prep with our guys over here, anyone who's watching Get Right, and we're gonna theory craft the hell out of this until we get to a point we feel really, really purely competent, and we can walk in there just knowing we're gonna crush it. So I'm gonna get those comps for like the Bryce, Purdy, Dak, I'm gonna get the Knicks, May, Caleb numbers, the rushing mid tiers. Maybe throw Lawrence somewhere in there. We'll figure that out comparable to this range of guys. I think that should be in there for sure. Oh, coming back to a couple here. Yeah. Yep. I mean, when we do this again, man, Judkins, I think 3-4 turn, right? If they remember this video, I don't think he makes it past like 4-2 anymore, right? At a minimum, you might need to take him at the late third. We'll have to see. Yeah, Pollard and Connor for sure. I want to get a little chart of like my favorite running back values in this format, just based on here's what they did last year. Here's what they would have finished. I'll try to get a little bit of like some nuance there so that it doesn't take into account in the wrong way, like how many games they played. I'll try to make it more of an averaged situation so that it's not voodoo math. I hate when people do those takes where they just clearly they're manipulating the numbers to favor their take, but it's just not the best objective way to use math for an outcome, right? So we'll try to make sure that's really clean, and I'm particularly good at that myself. So yeah, breaking. I'm in on Pollard and Connor. I think is the one we're sleeping on a little bit. He's in this format, man. He's money, and the team loves him, and they're set up to just ride him out again, man. I love it. Yep. And well, let's take a quick peek, Perk, just because Perk didn't practice or know the format at all. So how crazy was it? Yeah, maybe a little bit. I think it has to do with when I look at it, and I'm trying to be nice about it, but I'm saying like guys like DK Metcalf are like the opposite of volume plays, right? They're the big play guys. Chris Olave, we'll see. Like Jacoby made a lot of sense. I thought it was a little bit early for Sharps, perhaps. Igbuka, love the player. I don't think so he gets the volume. So Perk, I think this is probably the good exercise is there are guys you like that you have a proclivity to. We all do, right? When we see their names, we just know, we feel good. We know about their prospect profile. We like them in Dynasty. We think they're, someone to watch. You got to be careful. In this format, you have to really forget everyone you typically love. And just remember, you've got to get your own new set of favorites for this format. It's going to be a good practice because I think if you're unprepared, you are going to lean into. I am a sucker for Purdy. That's a winning play. It was fantastic. I bought Purdy in I think at least 2 Dynasty leagues. I didn't get him for super cheap. I paid up. I think it was at least a first and a second for him, and not super late either. And that was before the contract, and I felt pretty good about that. He's just a guy I've always believed in. I think he's going to have a lot of runway and success there. He was kind of maybe not a panic pick, but to some extent, he was a panic pick. And he's just a guy I like. And I justified that, well, he runs a little bit. He gets a couple first downs here and there. And yeah, I don't think he was a pick there. And he was a guy I like, and it made it easier to take. And that is an area I'm going to have to break down and get better with myself, right? So not how bad the team is. It's how did our thought process level up? This was not the Friday night mock, tournament style, right? This is this was class for all of us. This was hitting the lab for sure. For the breakdown video, you should get the other guys' favorite drafts. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm gonna get this whole board is gonna go into the Discord so everyone can break it down. I know all the folks here are all completely degens. I know everyone in our Discord for sure. We're tiny. It's not a ton of people, but the ones that are in there, they we love hashing it out. And so I think we'll probably break this down in the Discord, just in text and talking about it, maybe hop into the voice lounge, but yeah, in the video for sure. I'll have the other guys, at least 1 or 2, hop on and as we break it down. Absolutely. So we can get some different takes too on how they're approaching it, and they have some experience doing this before, so we'll see. Having it Hunt so late, he could split time with Pacheco. Yeah, and when Checo came back from his injury and was all healthy, right, it was kind of 50-50, right? Hunt was getting a lot of touches. So part of me just wants to bet more on Pacheco. Part of me also knows that if Pacheco were to go down, Hunt's just getting all the work, and he's good, and he knows the offense. And I do think where you got him, I would label him as a value. I also think he's an interesting handcuff because he's a handcuff that's usually he should be the guy you're handcuffing. He's the older back, right? But he's the guy that's the veteran subbing in for Pacheco. So it feels a little bit weird, but at the same time, we know if it hits, we know how it's going to hit. And in that offense, if it hits that way, running back coming off an injury is more likely to get re-injured. It's just how the body works. I like the pick. Yeah, and I do think he's going to continue to stay late. because he's not sexy enough and he's not young enough. We're in the dynasty cycle. The guys that are unpopular in dynasty are going to get an immediate sort of just like a mental, like push him down a little bit more for sure. And because we're doing a bunch of startups and this is like the sleeper ADP, it's going to push guys down who are just not in the news cycle in a positive way right now for sure. But hey, we're still hanging out. I got a little bit more energy left to be. I guess I'll keep going for a little bit. Won't go on forever. Just because you'll probably get sick of me at some point in the takes. We'll get driven. I'm going to finish up breaking down my team a little bit, give you my thoughts, and then we can call it. Definitely, probably not going on for too many more minutes. So get all your questions in there if you can. I'll prioritize questions over anything else that you guys want to. And shoot, I don't care if any of you guys have a little shout out of your own you want to mention in chat. I'll throw it up on the screen if you get your own little side hustle going on, whatever it is. I just know that the greater fantasy football community has been super cool to me, super cool to get right. A lot of folks hit me up on X and a lot of other places, giving me a lot of help and notes on how to take this to the next level, which is really cool. So appreciate that. Let's look at some picks here. So we talked about Purdy. Let's get into the DJ Moore pick. We talked about that being a little bit of a panic. Remember, I was looking for Caleb Johnson. I had 2 seconds. So let's just pretend DJ Moore's Caleb Johnson here. So I finally have a running back. Honestly, interesting to compare the two. Who would I rather have? I'm going to go ahead and run that scoring too, because now that I think about it, I do project DJ Moore to be sort of undervalued. I do think he's going to have the volume. I think he's a savvy enough route runner that he's just going to do fairly well in that offense. But there's a lot of targets, so there's just a lot of mouths, including Loveland, which I'm pretty high on. So maybe Caleb is just the easier pick there. I'll have to look at that a little bit. I don't think it's too bad. When I look at the other picks, though, I am pretty happy. I didn't like a lot. I was seriously considering Pollard there. The honest to God closeness was Caleb versus Pollard. Now that I'm thinking about it, absolute mistake. That was me playing the ADP game. Pollard was even lower than that, like the 8.5. Like Nick knows he was reaching for Pollard there too, right? So I think what I'm seeing here is like Connor's going to get pushed up as people figure out the format. Caleb's probably already gone. Pollard's going to get pushed up. This should have been Pollard here, 100%. If he's even still available there by the time we figure this format out, and when people get good at it, I don't think he's going to be there. How do we think about FF Premier's team? And good dude too. Love FF Premier, man. He's in one of my redraft leagues actually, which is pretty fun here. Okay, so let's see. Lamar at the 110. I like that. It's interesting for me because I think it's like Christian McCaffrey, I think, went later than he was supposed to, but Lamar probably a little bit safer than Christian McCaffrey. Lamar, Allen, Daniels are the only quarterbacks I would even remotely consider. Probably even it would be a minute. I mean, yeah, it hurts. He's touchdown centric. He gets so many first downs too. I guess I won't get too heavy on the earlier picks just because it's just such a nice range. He ended up getting McCaffrey anyway, so it's whatever. I think that was a good combination. I think that's a fine range there. Team, and it's hard because you can't look at the team and know like, ooh, I like these players. You have to remember like the format's different, and so breaking down a team roster actually takes a little bit longer and a little more thought than it normally would. So I apologize, I'm not as quick to just tell you, hey, I like it, I don't like it, and for these reasons. I kind of have to look a little bit more. Okay, I think Herbert too early at 5'10", same as kind of like look if Purdy's too early at 6'7", Herbert's definitely too early at 5'10". I'm not going to say it's like a mistake, but if we could look at it again, I think we would change that a little bit. AJ Brown before Garrett Wilson, definitely didn't like that pick, only because AJ Brown is more of a yak guy, more of a long touchdown guy, where I think in this format, you'll score more points if you don't get the touchdown, but you catch a bunch of 10-yard first downs and then someone rushes it in. I think there are drives that Garrett Wilson will have a worse fantasy outcome in other formats, but absolutely demolish AJ Brown in this particular format for sure. So I think that's one of those, just really recognize that forget touchdowns, just forget touchdowns exist, because the scoring is so on crack that 6 points for touchdowns is how it's always been. But PPR went from 1 to 2.5, right? A 2.5x multiple when touchdowns stay the same. So just forget touchdowns and forget yardage. just touches. And I think that's where you're like, I would take Wilson, I would take Rice, and I would take JSN, I would take Judkins, and I would take Walker, I would take a lot of those guys over AJ Brown just in this format. Like Ladd made a ton of sense though. I think Ladd is going to absolutely eat a bunch of volume. If anything, his volume is going to go up because I think he's going to have to do less stuff down the field with a true X and Trey Harris joining the field. I think he can do more of a power slot, big slot thing, which is what he did anyways quite a bit, but I think he can do that better and more consistently. So I like that pick. Didn't like AJ Brown. Herbert a little early. Monty, I don't hate. Would I take him? Would I look at some other guys? Yep, for sure. I'd go Connor over Monty, but I mean, there's similar tiers, have similar things. Monty, notably, he gets a lot of first downs. He closes the clock out a lot, and so he gets if they're winning in the fourth quarter. Now, remember they did lose their center to a retirement. That could be a pretty big deal. So I think their line getting weaker with new head coaching changes. Monty, new head coach, lost their center. I think he's a little bit riskier than I would like, so I would have pivoted a little bit different, but I think Monty's the type of player I think makes sense there over the wide receivers, because the wide receivers, Evans, these are touchdown guys. These are yak guys. Evans, you know what I mean? They're yardage or touchdown guys. And the running back makes a lot more sense there. Najee, I think you look at Najee as a volume back, right? Makes sense. Najee, I'm worried about. I'm a little bit worried that Hampton is just so. Remember when Bucky was just so much better than Rachaad White? And Rachaad White wasn't bad. He was good the year before. The team liked him. He wasn't bad. It wasn't like Bucky got in the field because Rachaad was bad. It was we can't take Bucky off the field anymore. I am worried that Najee is going to get Hamptoned. I'm worried that Hampton is just so good, and that team is not in. Let's just kick it down the can another year. They had a heartbreaking loss where Herbert played the worst game I've ever seen him play. They're ready to go. I don't think they're going to mess around. If Hampton's the dude and he's ready to go, he's going to be Bucky or better, and he's going to do his thing. So it's a player pick in particular that I would have changed, but I probably would have gone with, again, the next running back there I still think is the value. This is getting close to some wide receiver values, but they're not quite. Judy and Kupp I like there a little bit. But I think the running back could still be the right call, just not him. Upside wide receivers, I would have gone Jennings over Reed. Again, Reed's just not the right player for this format. I think where Jennings could eat and the other guys around him are all injured. I mean, there's a world where Jennings is the only healthy wide receiver on that team, and it's just him and Kittle just going to town, right? By the way, Kittle needs to go higher. Where did Kittle go? I don't know. Maybe he did go high. Okay, well, no, yeah, he went 3-2. He went before Devin Achane. Nope, you guys know Kittle's awesome. But yeah, he's rising on my boards a ton. So Kupp I liked. Reed I would have taken probably Jennings, or the running backs are not good here. So I see why you were probably like, Reed's a good wide receiver, and what else am I looking at, right? And I got 30 seconds. I think maybe I would look at like Njoku Ingram there. They have an entire extra point per perception over Reed. That's close. I'm gonna make a note of that. The David Njoku, Ingram going around lower. I'll even include Downs in there for sure, probably, and even maybe like a like a Beck or whatever. And I'll compare it against Reed and see how Reed comes out. That could be an interesting one. Stylistically, I would have gone a little bit different, I think. I do like the Ayuk pick. Ayuk is getting buried. One of my main takes is everyone overreacts to injuries because fantasy football is a feel-good sport, and we don't want to make the sound decisions, right? As often. And I'm not saying drafting an injured player is a sound decision, right? But I just think in general we overreact to injuries that just aren't terrible because everyone in the NFL gets injured. They're all banged up. So when we can't draft any of them, we got to pick and choose our spots. I don't think it is an injury that is just going to cripple him. Now, he might not be ready for week 1, but still then, in this form, you don't have to start him. But I think when he gets in the field, Pearsall, he's got the hamstrings linger. These things are all playing in Ayuk's favor a little bit. So that was a solid pick. Pitts with the other, people going where they are at, no problems there. Still 24 years old, still talented. Hasn't come together yet, but should be a little bit of a new offense this year. And that could be a pretty big boon for him. I think that's pretty fine. Looking at how he did the rest of it, just looking at some general stuff. I think I would have gone. There's still a good range of tight ends here where like Chubb and White went. So just remember in this cracked format, be careful about your handcuff running backs. They need to be ultra upside. I don't think Chubb is necessarily super high upside anymore. Not like Rachaad White is. I think Rachaad White was a great pick. Maybe Chubb, maybe not so much. Lockett, great pick. Here's where we start getting nice. And I know FF Premier, and I know he's a very talented drafter, so Lockett was a nice value. Goddard, with or without the trade. Target funnel doesn't have to be bad. He could be fine. Jalen Noel, a lot of upside. Dylan Sampson, a guy I was already thinking of taking. Compared to other guys in the range, remember we talked about 15 plus was ugly across the board no matter what. So I have to just say all of these picks were in a range of pretty disgusting anyways. How do we like his picks compared to disgusting? We can't really talk about build quality either because the positions don't matter. What do we take? We ended up playing out like a true super flex though, with two solid quarterbacks and the super kind of almost handcuffy situation there. Let's see, McLaughlin and Moss, handcuff, Isaac Tesla. Yeah, I mean, if something happens, he's going to get in the field, and they traded a lot for him, right? So they got to have a plan for him. If their plan's not this year, they have something for him. Look, like Noah, like Samson, like Goddard, I think this whole 4-pack of players is great. And here, how can you really judge? You know what I mean? At this point, I'll have to do more homework on really figuring out which late round picks I think are elite and which are fool's gold. I don't have a good enough beat on it, because the overlay of this format in particular is just, I can't get there, right? If we were doing, if I could trade for 1 million late round picks in Dynasty, I love nailing, the later round picks, especially in like startups. So I do have guys I would normally like in this range, but I have to really think differently in this format. So I'm not going to give you too many takes. I don't think I would be super valuable to that though. But earlier in the draft, I know I feel like I'm being really harsh and negative on FF Premier here, but this was a draft where we're figuring stuff out. So I don't think I'm doing anybody any favors by just kind of taking it chill. I liked the idea behind some of the picks, but I think stylistically, volume is king. Usage is not volume. That's something I think we should remember as sort of a one-liner. Like DK Metcalf, like AJ Brown will be involved. Jaden Reed, what was the thing that came out? His status as the number 1 wide receiver is not in jeopardy, right? Well, what do we know about the Green Bay team? It's like, well, it doesn't matter if you're the number 1 wide receiver. Your usage is good. You're going to run a lot of routes. You're going to do a lot of stuff. You're going to be a track star. But the actual touches you get are a little bit thin. You could look, the Bears offense might be somewhat similar. Usage will be good. Will the touches be there? I'm not 100% sure. So be careful. We're looking at touches, not usage. So that's also one of those, some wide receiver ones are created differently than others, right? Like, there's just some that are volume kings and there's some that are more touchdown X's. Between Jaden Reed and like a Waddle, I know Waddle went probably quite a bit earlier, I would imagine, but Jaden Reed's just not a PPR guy. Now, the interesting thing is, what if he became a PPR guy this year because they did a bunch of like Rashee Rice, like Devonta Smith sort of like slot stuff with him. I don't know if he's big enough to do it, but that could be interesting. And then the rest I think I like. So I would have changed stylistically some of the picks up. They're high value picks. You're good players, but I think the way they get their points in this format could be a little challenging. I think you might be giving up a little bit of an edge that way, but I think the team's fine. If you change a couple of those picks a little bit around, I think I stylistically like it. The real build here is, how do you like taking Lamar at 1? If I could just take this team as like Lamar, McCaffrey, and then McConkey where he went, like that starts phenomenal. I think that's really, really good. And I have to look at the range of outcomes for like a quarterback. I want to look at the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels sort of range of when they have a rushing bump versus what if they don't rush as much. Where does that kind of let them fall in the scoring? So more to come there. I don't have great or enough feedback and takes there for you guys. I'm not confident yet. I'm bringing up the topic because I think you guys can do your own homework as well. But that's kind of where I'm at with it. So FF Premier, that's what I got for you. Christopher North, that you are FF Premier, right? I think, like, I'm pretty sure. It's crazy because there's the sleeper name's one thing, but the Discord name's another, and the name on YouTube's another. So putting it all together can be a little bit dicey, but we'll see. But appreciate coming in. Sorry I had to. Yes, sir. Yes. Sorry I was so critical, man. I was not the nicest, but I sincerely hope it was useful. I would expect and appreciate the same criticism of mine in this format, because when we get to Chicago, I want to nail this thing, and low key, but not low key. I want to win this thing. Was stupid, fortunate enough, rabbit's foot to go from like an SBF hopeful for the first time last year, didn't do anything, to straight to the live draft. So Wilson's still in the chat. It's probably all because of him and Classic Mike. Honestly, they put my name up a bunch last year, so appreciate you guys like a bunch, man. Appreciate you. Good attitude to have. I like it. Anybody else still hanging on the chat? We've been going on for quite a while. I can break down, maybe one more team a little bit more briefly if anybody wants to. I think it's just me and you still looking at the draft board here, FF. I think everyone else is probably just listening in for the take. So I'll go through the rest of my draft real quick, and then I think we'll probably call it. I need to get some sleep if I'm going to do any content over the weekend. Otherwise, I'm going to get sicker than I already am, unfortunately. I'm on the mend already, though, so I could be in good shape. Let's finish this out. So I said Waddle here because I was taking an upside shot. I looked at the other wide receivers, and I just did not see a lot of volume upside. I liked Ridley. I'll come back to it. This was close. I was looking at Waddle, Ridley. I glanced at Pearsall and just said no, and then I looked at Godwin. I thought basically Godwin, like, Pearsall a little banged up, he'll be fine. Versus like Godwin, I've seen Godwin as the number one fantasy player to start last season. Pearsall had a pretty good end to last season. I think I would just rather trust Godwin in the volume in an offense. I think with a super healthy McCaffrey, San Fran might just run through McCaffrey all darn day, and then Kittle on play action stuff. I mean, there's no reason Pearsall has to be elitely involved. It really isn't. So Waddle was my super massive upside. It could be a total punt of a pick, and I'm looking like, should there have been a running back? The running backs just didn't make sense to me, and that's why you'll see, I think, after the Tracy pick, I mean, you have one running back in 9 and 2 in 10 compared to earlier. That was the lowest we've seen, So I think the receiver there was probably the right choice. It's a fine enough pick. I'm honestly looking down farther. I'm looking at like Juwan Jennings versus Waddle, and straight up, Jennings might be the better pick. But I think Waddle, if something happened to Tyreek, even if he doesn't, I still think Waddle's upside is still probably his top end upside is higher than everybody. I'm a little bit worried that straight up Darnell Mooney might be a better pick 2 rounds later than Waddle. So do you play the ADP game there? And with how many different guys? I think this range, I'm going to have to get sort of a checklist of forget the ADP game, have conviction on these guys, because I'm looking 2 rounds later and saying, hey, I probably should have just taken that guy. So we'll look at that a little bit later on. I don't hate the pick. Maybe it could have been arranged a little bit differently. I was looking at Godwin earlier, so obviously I took him. I was hoping to wheel Ridley or Godwin. It is interesting to note that, Mooney versus Godwin there. I don't know. We'll have to figure that one out a little bit later. I'd like shares. If I didn't get Waddle, I'd get one of those other guys. If I didn't get him, I would take Jennings. If I didn't take Jennings, I'd take Mooney. So in this range, I want a lot of those guys. Joku in the 10th kind of felt like cheating, to be honest. I think he could be like the tight end 6, no problem. And he's going way later than that. What side? I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, basically like tight end 10. I think I'm getting him at a value, and that felt good. Downs, favorite pick in the draft. I think he'll probably be a better pick than Godwin at the 9-6. So I mean, I guess I like enough picks in this range that I do have to play the ADP game, because someone's always going to fall to me. I'll have to see in future drafts if people get pretty sharp and we all start liking the same guys as more SBF targets, a draft and avoid stuff comes up. And there'll be a lot of that everywhere. I think a lot of these hidden gems are going to start rising. What I'm saying is it could get to this point where you do play the ADP game, because maybe I have 3 guys I like in each round enough that you just got to do that. But the ADP game in Sleeper is different. I need to figure out what the market ADP is for this. So that's probably what I recommend to you guys too, is we got to do enough, get enough reps in here to kind of figure out who's hot and who's not. If I drafted all with you guys again right now, a bunch of the guys I took are all going earlier, right? And so I'm going to have to do something different. So I'm going to do another mock and we'll learn from that. Finishing this out, Mason Taylor, has the chance to be, the second weapon in that offense. And we're looking at volume. I don't need him to score a single touchdown. If he can be, a really crappy version of McBride on that team, great. That is what we are looking for. Mason Taylor, an elite pick for late, not an elite pick in general, but for where he goes, I think he is going to be nice. Very happy. I don't think I passed up on anybody else that I should have. Was happy to have him. In the next round, I was looking at Wandale or Strange. It's pretty easy for me. I think Wandale is just a massive, massive target hog. And that's what you want in this format. I think he should be really, really good, consistent player for me. And he kind of acts as a pseudo handcuff. If he's just super limited by Neighbors, I have Neighbors on my team. Happy to have him. That's a positive situation. Injury happens. It elevates. If Wandale goes down, Neighbors has to catch the ball on every single play, right? So I think there's correlation there that makes sense. Don't mind that pick whatsoever. Remember, I meant that to be Gesicki, and I still like that. So keep in mind, I would have gone tight end 10, 12, and 14. We decided we are going to full punt tight end. How do we think about it? We were considering Bowers in 1. The thing is, you can take all the tight ends you want because you can start as many as you want to. So you just have to look at tight ends like another pass catcher. A tight end and a wide receiver are the same thing. They're pass catchers. I think I'm going to have to run a few scenarios in my head just to remind myself, hey, 5 for 50 in this format. What is that? Right? What is this? What is this? What's their range of outcomes? I need to get a point spread difference in my head for when I can kind of forecast people quickly, where I see this range of production equals this range of production in tight ends. I need to get that more in my head a little bit, and that will make these later on picks not easier, but you'll be more confident in who you're taking and why. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Knowing the tight end versus the wide receiver, you're drafting a pass catcher. That's a slightly different scoring format to kind of figure that out a little bit. But in general, if the wide receiver and tight end are kind of close, just think of how you would draft them and kind of redraft to some extent. If they're close, go with the tight end. So I like this range of lower end tight ends. I think the tight end, 5 through whatever, can shuffle around a lot each year. But the point is they're all pretty close in points. But they're elevated points in this format. So liked Njoku, liked Taylor, liked what would have been Gesicki, ended up being Otten, totally okay. And then the gross rounds 15 through. I still like some upside in Tillman. They're honestly feeling not a bad pick. A lot of these are like fine picks, Noel, Coker, Leggett, Royals. I like a lot of these. So if it wasn't Tillman, it would have been a lot of those other wide receivers. Point being, I don't like the handcuffs in this range. I'll give you the full list of guys that I like. I like Braylon Allen as a handcuff. I like taking Wright and Gordon. It's a deep bench. I thought that was savvy. I don't like taking one of them, but taking 2 when you can, actually, because this range is so gross, I like taking both and just saying, if something happens, I got it. You have to imagine it might be an ugly timeshare, but that's one where maybe it isn't. Not sure. Later on, I guess one thing I'm noticing is the Geno Smith, Tyler Shuck, Wilson, Darnold, even Shador. These guys do feel better than the meh picks in this range. I don't know if Tyler Shuck is good, great, mediocre, off. I don't know, but he could be better than we think. Russell Wilson has some good offensive weapons. He has played good. Sometimes he likes to do the F it deep ball thing and can get crazy with it. This is not a pro Russell Wilson take. I'm just saying, here where I took him in the 18th over the trash that was left, I think there's an argument for you don't need to start a quarterback, but quarterbacks late, because you can draft them late, because you can kind of draft him as a handcuff for 2 slots. I think there's some value there. I would look at more late round. I don't think we were thinking about it. I think a lot of us were looking at the flex pool, but honestly, I was blind to quarterbacks for all because I was looking at the flex pool just so I didn't have to wade past guys I didn't want to pick. But that's another mental note for the future is in the post 15, probably 16 plus round, I am looking for Geno Smith, Tyler Shuck, Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold just came off a great season. They got weapons in Seattle, right? And maybe some Shador. Less on Shador, more Darnold, Wilson, Shuck. They're probably Smith, Russell, Darnold. The fact that I'm talking these other guys in the same sentence is a little bit crazy, but those guys really should do it. Would be pretty thrilled to grab them a little bit late. Finishing off, so Braylon is a handcuff that I like. Will Shipley, I like quite a bit. DJ Giddens, just because I don't think there's anybody really competent there. I would see DJ Giddens probably getting in there. Yeah, Hawkes Hunter. I think that's one of those between him and Quorum. I said I like the Hawkes Hunter pick. I'm changing my mind because between him and Quorum, I think it would be the upside's capped because they would split. So that's one that I would have to think about a little bit. Justice Hill, I think I don't know what to think about him. I want to say I like him, but at the same time, would it be better to just take the Keaton Mitchell in the next round potentially? As I think Keaton Mitchell's more of the future, and there is the potential to get him more involved. He's just not a volume guy. So if something were to happen, who gets the volume? I honestly, I don't know, to be honest. I think I prefer Mitchell to Hill, but those aren't terrible because the offense is great and Henry is super old. Things can happen. I think I like them versus a lot of the handcuffs before them. Again, I talked about Will Shipley. Just pretty simple. Saquon goes down. I do think he steps into all the volume. That's big. A lot of the guys are talking about that doesn't happen. Does happen for him. Woody Marks, I think he gets a lot of the volume. I think he's good enough. Kyle Monanga, I think he's getting steamed up in camp a little bit. I think he could potentially be, I'll call it right now, he could be the next Pacheco. He fits that archetype. He could fit that for them. I like him. Kendre is worth a shot, and I like Isaiah Davis hyper late. Same thing with Braylon Allen. It's like you can get Braylon Allen 6 rounds later in this case, and I'm not quite sure who gets the nod. I like them both. So I have very particular handcuffs that I like at running back, but that's kind of it. Otherwise, I have favorites at wide receiver. What I want to target is ambiguous wide receiver rooms. So that's why I went with Bryant and Horton to some extent, because it's not really ambiguous, but between who's 1 and who's 2, yeah, I mean, I think Horton is easily the third above the tight ends. And I'm not sure where Kupp is at too. So Horton's pretty solid. Anyway, that's some of my favorite later picks in this ugly range. Maybe you can take a few of those to note. There's no great strategy here positionally. So that's the weird thing. Normally I'm talking about positional strategy here. The only thing I can think of is these quarterbacks I think were a value. So that was breaking down my draft pick for pick. I said I was going to draft 2,000 running backs, and I drafted Genty and then didn't take a running back until the 19th round. So best laid plans. This was a mock where I didn't even think running backs would go as quickly as they did. I think it was going to take people longer. I think the next draft they're going to be up the board and up the board and up the board. So we'll see. If this was the draft I thought I would end up with more running backs and I had none, maybe we're going to have a meta where in the mocks the running backs go up, and up, and then eventually all of us have to be like, hey, the wide receivers are a screaming value, and we'll have to monitor where the meta is with the drafting. So that's kind of spicy, kind of fun. It means the only way to really figure this one out is to do a lot of enough mocks that everyone's tried out enough and are starting to get try hard. So interesting. Yeah, not the draft I thought I would end up with. If I pushed my quarterbacks a different way, I think I would have fit in a running back or two there. But we'll see. But anyways, hey, I think I'm calling it a night. Sick draft. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate you guys. You're like every other content creator on the planet, but I think I mean it more earnestly than all of them. Please, if it takes 30 seconds, it means the absolute world to me and my friends. Please do consider liking and subscribing to our YouTube channels. There's the Get Right Fantasy Network, kind of our home channel. The whole idea there is we want to have enough of us creating enough shows over time here, hopefully sooner rather than later, that it's just kind of our central brand. And then, if you want to check out, me and Phil's stuff, or if you want to check out what, Mike or maybe Rasta or some other guys are doing, no problem. But definitely check out the Get Right Fantasy Network. Please give us a like and a subscribe. It helps us a ton. Check out my channel, the Fantasy Football Tavern. I haven't put anything out in a long time. I'm 100% focused on building up Get Right, specifically our community. We're not a get rich quick scheme here. We're just trying to build a really cool community in our Discord where we're going really deep on trade analysis, not like rate the trades like a trade calculator, but full in-depth trade theory, roster construction. And we're too small, so we're not charging anything yet, but product development is coming. I'm actually working with a couple of fans this weekend. Actually, I say fans, that's an insult. They're actually industry professionals that are giving me just as much advice too. So if I'm saying anything, like and subscribe, please. It helps us a lot. And even if not, please consider checking out our Discord. It's an amazing community. It's small, but it's growing, and they are draft degenerates. You'll love hanging out. We chat more and go more in depth on trade than anybody else does. 100% guarantee it. If you see our group chat and get right, it's there for sure. So that's us. Like, subscribe, do the thing, leave us some comments on the YouTube channel. Appreciate that. I'll catch you in Discord, and come mock with us again. I can't think of anything else to say, so let's play some music. I'm gonna hit the bed. You guys are legends. I should have had the outro button ready. This is embarrassing. Catch you guys later.
Wanted to write fantasy is the play. Marking nothing, but I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go and roll your sleeves up.
Y'all are legends. We appreciate you.